Hello there.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey. So how's everybody doing this morning?
Hi, Elizabeth.
we're great. How you
Wonderful.
guys doing?
It's just all gone to hell in a handbasket. I can't take it anymore.
We don't want to go there. The response is always everything's fine.
I mean, here on the Central Coast, we got a fire going, we got a tsunami, we got tornadoes raking the mountain range. It's just, and then the locusts.
And what about the cicadas?
Oh, the African ants that were trying to be smuggled in by a couple of Dutch boys. No joke, true story.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
Yeah, they got caught. $1,000 fine each, plus possible prison time.
Oh my
It's
God.
the equivalent of the Africanized bees.
Oh, right. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
wow. That's
You know
bad.
that they'll pay $1,000 per ant. These black marketeers.
Wow.
So if you're looking for extra work,
I know.
Richard, can you hear me?
Elizabeth, you are coming through loud and clear.
Okay,
How are you?
Excellent. Good.
Got the music. We're all set.
Okay.
And the opposite of all of that, folks, is it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor?
We are your neighbors.
Ah, yes. Oh, I just spent the morning at a auto glass shop. Did some research. My driver's side window was shattered by a rock, and actually, it was not shattered, it was sunburst because the window tinting held it all together. So it was still in there,
Wow.
but I couldn't see out my left side there. So I was over there this morning and I'd been doing some research. It was going to cost me between $300 and $400 at other places. I go to this place and I'll give them a plug. Best Price Auto Glass down on South Kellogg, $200.
Wow.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Unfortunately, it only adds $200 to my deductible. But hey, it's only $200 out of my pocket. Thank you very much.
That's right.
When you find a deal, I believe the phrase is take it.
That's it. That's it.
So what's the subject matter for today, folks?
Freddie, do you
Well, I think
Silence.
Elizabeth is going to tell us what the subject matter is. I think we're talking about our talk for Saturday, but I think she wanted a little sneak peek or something.
A sneak peek. All right. Well, okay, fine. If that's what she wants, then that's what she gets.
What's that?
The talk subject today is a sneak peek at tomorrow's Color, Light, and Motion series. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes, for sure. And I want to talk a little bit. Well, I've got some surprise questions anyway for you, Doctor. So I don't want to tell you too much, but yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And first of
Good.
all, we have to
I need a
introduce you both.
surprise at this time.
What's that?
I said I need a surprise at this
You need a
time.
surprise.
Do you want fireworks or confetti?
I like what we did. We used to do with that da, 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 that horn thing that you did. That was years ago, but
It
Richard
was
and I have been doing this for almost 20 years.
almost
Every Friday.
unbelievable,
Yeah.
but it's incredible. I tell you.
I still like him a lot.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm quite fond of you too, Elizabeth.
No,
You have
we've
a
actually-
lovely British accent.
Yeah. We have mutual help situation
Mhm.
where it's a really interesting friendship for sure.
Mutual Support Society.
Yeah.
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 Oh, let's see here. What am I doing?
So,
This is it here.
Dr. Joanne, will you pronounce your last names for me?
Yes, it's Kuchera Morin.
Okay, good. Okay. And do you say Janka? Do you pronounce the J, Freddie?
Yes, Jenka.
Okay.
Unlike
and
a game.
Yeah, not the same.
I'm not even going to say it. Not even going to say it. Don't go there. Don't do it. Don't say it. Wouldn't be prudent. All
And the
right.
art, who's the artist of the piece behind you, Freddie?
Oh, that's a great question. Sarah, oh gosh, Mosehi, I think is the name. She's from Iran.
Did she sign it?
Beautiful.
You can look back and see.
I know exactly. I follow her. Yeah, I mean it's kind of hard to read her signature, but I'll find the title and name.
It's so difficult to do that rendition of water right. She
Mhm.
seems to have got it. The impression is it's really there.
I use real water in all my paintings, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. You never really get it quite right. So, you know. But I like that picture behind you too. That is very cool. That is very cool. Oh, Elizabeth, did you know? Did you know that next Thursday is the grand opening of the Shumash Indian Museum?
Yeah, I sure did.
I am trying to get an interview with somebody. I'd love to get an interview with Ken Khan, but that probably won't happen.
We have the new director's info if you want that.
Oh, I'd love it. I would love
Yeah.
it because,
Yeah, we went to, well, I didn't personally go, but our director went to the open. There was a preview for colleagues a couple weeks ago.
Very cool. All right, open has started.
You put a value on the treasures in your own home. Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven?
Here we go, Elizabeth.
So let's find out.
3,
How
2,
valuable is it?
1, you are live.
Hello, Santa Barbara. It's your chantress of everything valuable and beautiful, Elizabeth Stewart. And you know, I have to say, this is Richard and I've been, like we were talking before the show started, we've been doing this show for almost 20 years. This particular show is probably the most challenging for me because I spent a good part of yesterday trying to figure out what exactly we were going to speak about. And I, in the end, threw up my hands and just said, okay, I'm going to let the two participants talk a little bit about the relationships that I'm going to play with here. So first, I want to introduce to you Freddie Janka, and it was Frederick actually Janka, and in researching him, I came across some quotes, things that he said to the media over the years, and I really like this. I'm putting these two together. They're from two separate interviews. Freddie, art translates to options, and then ... art saves lives. I thought that was remarkable. He is formative in the rebirth of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Santa Barbara, along with Arturo Soto, who I knew from UCSB AD&D Museum, and also I think it's Lum Art that he was involved with. And I had the honor of interviewing Deborah Herrick as well, who's part of the gang, the think tank that was responsible for the rebirth of the Contemporary Art Museum. She's at UCSB, editor of Lum. And then I think there was also Lila Glasso-Franesi, director of the Carolyn Glasgow Bailey Foundation in Ojai. And just a little background, I didn't know this, but our Museum of Contemporary Art was established as the Contemporary Arts Forum back in 1976. And it closed, sadly. I remember doing the last show with the last director in August of 22. And so I think Freddie got together with a number of these folks I just mentioned and said, okay, could we possibly spearhead a rebirth? And boy, it worked. Freddie is also the chair of the Arts Advisory Committee for Santa Barbara and is instrumental in facilitating the Ojai Institute as well. And I'm also joined, and the reason that we're having this program is because Saturday, there's an amazing show that will be opening at this at the Contemporary Arts Museum, Color, Light, Emotion, episode 28. Joanne Kuchera Morin is here, the director of AlloSphere, California Nanosystems, and many other things. And I want to introduce her as well. She's the director. I mean, the mind boggles. She's done so much. I'm just picking and choosing. She's the director and chief scientist of the AlloSphere Research Facility, professor of media arts and technology and music at our university here in Santa Barbara. The culmination of her creativity is and research is the AlloSphere. It's a 30-foot diameter, 3-story high metal sphere. Can you picture that? 30 feet. Inside an echo-free cube. It's designed for immersive interactive scientific and artistic investigation of multidimensional data sets. It's an instrument for the creation and performance of avant-garde new work and the development of new modes and genres of expression and forms of immersion-based entertainment. I would say more research than entertainment, but boy, I listened to a couple of her TED Talks last night, and my partner, John, who has his degree in physics, was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. So there's a couple of questions we have. First of all, Freddie, tell us about the event.
Yeah, so there is an amazing organization in town called the David Bermant Foundation. And so this organization was founded upon the passing of a really wildly pioneering art collector named David Bermant, who started he was really one of the first to put art, and especially kinetic and moving art, into shopping malls that he owned across the Midwest and East Coast, and creating immersive art experiences really for the public, where he took the art to the streets essentially, and later retired in our community. And it's an incredible collection of artworks that has been donated to the oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it right now. But anyways, this organization, they still are funding really exciting projects that relate to light, sound, and space. And so they are funding some upcoming projects at the museum. And they are also very excited about what Joanne is doing and supporting her work. And so this was an opportunity to basically bring us both together. We are also at the museum. Our new signature fundraiser is called the Art Awards. And this year we're giving Dr. Joanne Kuchera Morin an art award to celebrate her artistic contributions and excellence in our community. And so the president of the foundation and was like, hey, you guys might want to do a talk together. So
Yeah.
we're collabing, and this is a fun opportunity for us to do a little pregame before the big event tomorrow. But really, it's about the David Bermant Foundation and their support of art in our community.
I understand also that the foundation has some amazing artists that they've collected. I mean, amazing. And you guys are going to be talking about, let's see, Duchamp. You're talking about Namjoon Pak. You're talking about Otto Penny. You're talking about Alejandro and Morosina. And these artists are of the genetic code that Dr. Joanne Kuchera Morin contains herself. And I wanted, Richard, you gotta look at the TED Talk that Dr. Kuchera Morin did on this. It's just an amazing thing. And by the way, Dr. Kuchera Morin is a recipient of the 2025 Art Award, honored at MCASB, their own art awards, and that's going to be, mark your calendars, Sunday, June 13th.
July 13th.
Sunday, July 13th. Yes, I'm reading that wrong. Let's talk a little bit about, well, here's my first question for Dr. Kuchera Morin.
You can call me Joanne.
Joanne, thank you. I grew up, my mom is going to be 97, and she's still around. She is an incredible musician. and I grew up with her. She's the first graduate of Juilliard, female conductor.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and then she led all sorts of female barbershop quartets. She didn't like that was just necessarily the male purview. That she all throughout the country, you know, 4-part harmony. She traveled and formed these groups that are still around today, called the Melodiers. We've got a group here in Goleta, also Melodiers, and they know who my mom is. By the way, it's so fun. She had perfect pitch.
Wow.
And she was highly annoying because in those days, you know, getting up for school, there was an alarm clock, and you wound the alarm clock. You know what I'm going to say, because you're a composer. As that spring winds down, the clock it emits a different sound, so like that. Not only did this caused my mother to have a migraine, so I'd have to, you know, stamp the clock before, you know, 2 minutes, but she also would shout out a color as the clock was diminishing. So she'd start with orange because I think that was the particular tone. Synesthesia, she had this ability. So she would hear this tone of the alarm clock and she'd be like, orange, purple. And I'd hear her count down
Wow.
until, you know, she'd succumb to a migraine. So that is in short of an introduction of saying, where did Joanne start with this? Because she's translating data into sound, timbre, tone, color, movement, and it's sort of a new horizon. And I want to know what started this. And I wish I could be more specific, but I will say that, you know, she's described on her business card as a distinguished professor. So she's been at this game for a while. Director and chief scientist of the AlloSphere Research Facility, California Nanosystems Institute. I know my mom started by picking up an uncle's violin and playing with the strings and getting different tones and, you know, falling in love with the tones. And then she became quite an accomplished pianist. How did you start?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I really shouldn't be where I am, but let's say what started me in my approach to where I am now. I am a composer. I'm a composer from, I studied at Eastman School of Music, which is the other conservatory from your mom. And just writing these pieces and pushing the envelope on orchestral instruments for them to make sounds that they typically couldn't make, like what happened in the avant-garde with such composers as John Cage, etc. Putting rosin fish wire in piano strings to get microtones, and just really trying to understand the whole aspect of sound, and realizing that all sound is frequency. And the interesting thing is, if we start thinking about how our bodies actually understand this in the world, is all of our senses are frequencies. So we hear from 20 vibrations up to 22,000 vibrations a second. According to my Christchurch earthquake guys, we feel a waveform in the ground from an earthquake can be 15 minutes long, up to 100 vibrations a second. So I started wondering if we could start to map all of our frequencies, all of our senses into different frequencies, and if we could transform one set of frequencies into another set of frequencies. And so that's kind of how I got to this 40-year trek that I've been on since I've been at UCSB. I started, they hired me to build one of the first computer music studios before a computer could make sound, not knowing that I only had 2 years on a PDP-11 computer and I had no programming language, but they loved my orchestral works. And that started me trying to tame the beast of the computer, which is just a horrible machine to try to get to do what beautiful people can do when they perform. So that's kind of how I got to where I am.
So I wasn't too far off in reimagining those early days when I was 13 years old and listening to my mom put sound with color and the kind of combinations of the parts of the brain that she must have been experiencing as, you know, a holistic way of grasping, you know, reality. I want to just say, Richard's giving us a sign we got to go to a quick break. But when I was watching a couple of the demonstrations, Richard, you got to see this stuff. I was also thinking about the idea of early technology. So people complain, you know, this is like, oh, you know, this isn't really art. It's just you know, it's just the use of technology. For example, in some of the interactive fine art that you guys are going to be talking about on Saturday, you know, Nam June Paik, for example, and even Marcel Duchamp and how he was being, you know, belittled. The idea is that whenever you have the threshold of a new technology, people are scared. They don't know how to handle that. And so I was thinking as I was watching some of the demonstrations of the AlloSphere, Dr. Joanne, I was thinking of how people didn't like oil paints from a tube in the 15th century, how people didn't care for the color blue without the addition of lapis lazuli. They didn't like the chemical elements in paint. They didn't like the printing press. They didn't like early photography like Julia Cameron's work, where it was a borderline between a portrait and a document. People get scared. And I was watching what you have developed over 40 years and trying not to get scared, trying to think to myself, this is just a new threshold. This is just like Gutenberg. You know, this is just something that is, it's an art form, but it's an art form that we haven't experienced completely yet. I was also reading some of the testimonies of people that had been inside the AlloSphere as well. And the fact that, you know, it's not something that you're wearing, you know, like the goggles that you wear to, you know, to be in another reality. This is your body's in there. So I don't know. I was so impressed. Ruth, I want to go to break, but I want Freddie to talk a little bit about his take, what his angle is. He's one of the directors. In fact, he's the board chair of the Museum of Contemporary Art. What would you say? Okay, so I'm a recalcitrant board member, Freddie, and I'm looking at what Dr. Joanne is doing, and I'm saying, why should we be a party to this? And I'm on your board. Let's posit it that way. How would you convince me that this is an art form and that it is important that a museum discuss this art form? When we get back from the break, hey, Richard.
Yes,
Richard.
Elizabeth. Yes.
Let's go to a quick break, and then I'm going to throw that question to Freddie. Like, how do you convince me, Freddie, that that I need to know about this as a culturally interested person? Okay, let's go to quick break.
And
All
I've got to
right,
get
you're
my
clear.
charger. We're back.
You're clear, and Freddie, you're going to have to
Yeah.
defend your dissertation. That's the equivalent of what she's asking.
Oh, I got it. I got it, girl. I got it.
By the way, folks, I'm impressed by the conversation. And by the way, there's a gentleman I have had on my program many times, Jonathan Goldman, dealing with sound and humming and tones and all the vibration. And I've talked with a lot of people about this aspect of, frequencies and vibration and consciousness. And so I'm just, and one of the first things that went through my mind when you said that, Joanne, I'm going, Elizabeth, why are you doing my show? But it's like everything's connected. I mean, that's just the way that it is.
That's
I
exactly
was
the
bringing
case.
these out. So look what I collect.
Oh, what do you have there?
Some singing bowls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
I
got the Tibetan singing bowl.
I have,
I
I
have,
collect,
yeah. Oh my goodness, Elizabeth, how
yeah,
beautiful.
but this is
Oh
my
my
best one.
God.
This is my
Wow.
best.
Oh, the big one there. Oh my heavens.
Yeah,
My,
this is a Japanese bowl.
okay, we can't hear it for some reason. Zoom does not like
Do you have
music.
sound on?
Her sound
See
is
if I
on.
can-
Yeah, her sound is on. That's right. And she's not sharing, so it's not
Oh,
No.
you
shares.
can't hear, can you hear
No.
the clattering?
No.
No.
That's weird.
There's something, I don't know what it is in Zoom. There's a setting obviously that needs to be set. I'll have to find that out.
Down at the
Um,
bottom, there's an audio setting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And it says,
By the way,
yeah.
my first wife and I bought, and she still has, a giant white crystal bowl.
Yes, I have a bunch of glass ones as well.
Oh,
Now,
they are fun to play. Hey, we're coming back. Here we go, Elizabeth. It's your turn. Not my show. In 3, 2, 1, you are live.
welcome back. It's Elizabeth Stewart, and I'm talking with a fascinating professor emeritus at the university, Dr. Joanne Kuchera-Morin, who will be speaking with Freddie Janka at the Museum of Contemporary Art Saturday, May 10th. And I think you all ought to be there. It's 10 a.m. Color, Light, Motion, episode 28. I read this and I thought, oh, I got to talk with these folks. I got to cover this. It's so interesting. Now, I said to Freddie, I'm on your board, let's say, and you come to the board and you say, I've got an idea for a series, and it involves sound and light and technology and color and movement. And there's a big ball that you can walk into at the university. And inside this big ball, you get hit with a new way of looking at the world. What do you think? Shall we spend the museum's money and do a presentation? And then I say, as your board member, what? What about some
Well,
good two-dimensional art we can hang on the wall? What's so bad about that? How do you
Elizabeth,
do it?
I know you know this, but artists have always been at the forefront of new technologies, new scientific innovations, and new ways of looking at the world from day one. We've been working on an exhibition project called Sangre de Nopal, which just closed, but it was part of the Getty PST Art and Science Collide initiative. And essentially, our proposition to them in that case was art and science in indigenous and traditional thought and cosmology are not distinct. We're the ones who have created different categories of science and art and sciences and arts. And so, this is really aligned with the way we're looking at the world. We need to be up to date with technologies and looking at the world because art is always showing us our own world. So if we're, it's the holding the mirror back at society, right? So this is critical to the work that we do as the board of the Museum of Contemporary Art. We're sharing this with our communities. We're advocating for continued innovation and experimentation and new ideas in culture, technology, art, science, because at the end of the day, it helps us understand ourselves and humanity in a more complicated, complex, interesting way. So this is work that we advocate for because this is what artists are looking at, and we're paying attention to artists. We follow artists. We don't tell artists where to go. We follow them.
Let's
You
hope that
said yes?
continues.
Exactly.
So, so just a little bit of a backtrack. I found it just amazing, and I got to look at it further some more, but I found it so amazing that this is coming from the mind of essentially a musician. And so, Dr. Joanne said 40 years experience of digital media research, but she is a musician. She's a composer. And leading to the digital media innovation program. And I think about that, and I think about the relationship, as Richard was saying, I think during the break, he follows a gentleman who's been on his program a number of times that uses sound for healing purposes and sound for visualization purposes. And so sound is so important. So it started with sound, I guess, Joanne. And it ended up being a 30-foot diameter, 3-story high metal cylinder inside an echo-free cube. Okay, so you see, I'm confused as to where to go next, but I'm gonna ask you this. So I have a brother who's an engineer. Well, I'm the only artistic person in the family. Everybody else, all my brothers, everybody that went to higher education in my family went except my mom, studied engineering, and essentially the way she looked at the world was very much like an engineer. You are using the AlloSphere to explore, according to what I was researching, scientific advancements like going into the atom, going into the neuron, going into the synapses of the brain. So some of these very interesting forward-thinking scientists are participating in the program. And here I'm going back to someone like my brother. My brother could not properly make the leap between what he's looking at and what he's feeling and the science. He's too much a literalist. Have you run into this with your people that are scientists?
What's so interesting is there's actually a difference between engineers and scientists and artists. Sometimes it's easier for me to communicate with the scientists because the scientists are looking for the same kinds of things that I'm looking for in their information. They're looking at content based. Most of my engineering colleagues are engineering systems. So it's been a really interesting kind of triad of people that we work with and understanding their language in order to be able to communicate with them. So, and I do have some pushback from scientists as well. One of the interesting things are the difference between experimental scientists and computational scientists. The experimentalists believe that the computer doesn't generate real data. So how can they trust anything that they see in what we visualize? And the computational scientists say, oh, those experimentalists do one experiment and they think they know exactly what's happening in the data. So it's really an interesting group that we work with. And one of the most exciting things is to be able to be there and be able to represent the data in a way that is unusual to them. And for them to start finding patterns in their information that they wouldn't ever uncover, because I'm probably doing something very wrong with their data because it artistically is very pleasing. But to talk about what the AlloSphere is, it's really my big performance instrument. So think of this as my largest instrument that I've made. It's built in an echo-free chamber, but we have 54.1 channels of sound, 3D spatial sound. You're totally in visual data, and you can it's almost like standing on the planet and looking to the horizon and being able to be in whatever world you want to be, whether it's an atom or it's the real world or just an abstract piece of art. So it's real, and it's multi-user. So a number of researchers come in and they'll pick up a virtual device and start working with their complex system. It's what I call performing complex systems. And so I don't know if I'm explaining it right to you, but
well, what I also love about some of those programs that we've experienced in the sphere, Joanne, are when we're talking about multi-dimensions, right? It really becomes this. So Elizabeth, we're in there and they're like, oh yeah, so this thing we're showing you is actually in 4 dimensions, but we don't really know 4 dimensions, so it's really a shadow. So you're sitting there, Elizabeth, and you're like, what? We're looking at really cool shadows.
Right. Well, that's what's so interesting, because the only way I can understand it as a composer, because I don't understand any of this stuff. I'm just the regular composer that's had nothing to in high school and doesn't even know my own programming language that my wonderful hybrid graduate students have made. But the only way I can understand it is that we're a three-dimensional being, and in order to see ourselves two-dimensionally, we cast a shadow. So that's a two-dimensional figure of what we are. But then my grads are telling me, okay, well, then look at this, four-dimensional shape. You're actually only looking at the shadows of this 4 dimensions in 3 dimensions. And that's when Richard is right on, because a lot of this is dealing with consciousness.
So, okay, well, but I want to bring it into sort of a symbolic analogy, maybe. So, there's different, as you were saying, like and I thank you for that distinction between the engineering mind and the scientific exploratory mind. And then the artist mind that's, that's sort of jumping into the future, as Freddie was saying. So a shadow that is a shadow of a shadow is more or less just a metaphor for art in general. It is that is the best way I could think about what the project is telling me in just a short few, 5 hours or so of trying to get my head around it. But I want you to talk a little bit more, Joanne, about the word that you said that I think might, for me, tie a lot of what we're talking about together. And Freddie, chime in. You mentioned that the people that you're working with are looking for or seeing or hope to conceive of through your big instrument, your huge 30-foot instrument. They're searching after pattern.
That's right.
Okay, I would like to hear more about that.
Most of your data, whether it's experimental or whether it's a mathematical model, it's lines and curves. And it's really interesting when I brought the physicist into our visualization of the hydrogen-like atoms electron splitting a hydrogen atoms electron in superposition, the Schrodinger equation. I worked very closely with a physicist in order to represent that. It wasn't like I just said, hey guys, come on in and look at this. I sat down with my physicist and said, what are you looking for? And he explained to me, he goes, well, hydrogen is the first element of the periodic table. It has 1 electron, but the electron can be in different orbitals at the same time. That's what they call these probability waves. And I said, he goes, think about the ocean, and you see all these different currents are making these different waves that are crossing. He goes, that's what I want to see. I want to see the crossing of these probability waveforms. And so then I'll sit there and say, okay, well, let's take the mathematical model and think about how we're going to visualize this. Let's think about if we threw a rubber band into an ocean and we watched it twist, then we'd see where these currents cross. So that's what we did. We do agent-based data mining. So we made this little object that looked like a rubber band, and we gave it the mathematical parameters of go out into the quantum ocean and look for these quantum number combinations. And that was according to the physicists. They're the ones that are putting in the math. Then it goes out and they start to make these visualizations. And the physicists will say, well, wow, that's what I see in my mind when I see these numbers. And I believe that's the forms I'm going to see. And then they get excited because they've never been able to bring it up to dynamic scale. And they've never been able to do it in real time where they can just change a number immediately and they can just see the change of the shape. And it's like this intuitive process that is really making them go, wow, I've never been able to work with this complex information in such a simple way. And for me, it's like, wow, I don't understand quantum mechanics, but this is really cool. And I'm starting to understand what these probability wave functions do and how they work by making a language that we all can understand. We see, we hear, we interact, we live in a complex system, for heaven's sakes. How in the heck do we navigate in the world? And so, this is kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a language that everybody, it doesn't matter who you are, you can understand physics, you can understand four-dimensional geometry. So.
Okay, so, as you were telling me this, Joanne, I was picturing, so I took about a year of study with a a maestro in Indian music, and she actually played a number of instruments, and my mom was well enough at the time to come and hear one of her concerts. And I told you my mom has perfect pitch, and she could hear the quarter. So then, there's the whole tone. She could hear the half, she could hear the quarter. And I couldn't. I know I could sort of get a sense of what she was hearing. But the musician, of course, lived in that world. And I don't know why I got that picture of studying with her as you were telling me this, about the pattern seeking and the testing of the theories and the looping nature. And I want to know, maybe Freddie can help me here. I want to know, Freddie, what elements struck you as, as a person that studies art history, what elements struck you so that you thought about this presentation going to happen on Saturday, where you're bringing in some artists such as Marcel Duchamp? What struck you as the reasoning for bringing in someone like Duchamp into this discussion? What's the similarity that you, what around what are you going to make an analogy between Duchamp and the AlloSphere?
Well, it's a circle. No.
Yes.
The piece that we're talking about are a series of discs that rotate and spin almost like on a record player. And so he was really interested in what happens when you've made marks on a disc. So this is two-dimensional, right? You're making these two-dimensional marks on a flat disc, and then you spin it, and then you actually see, wow, it's like early animation, right? It's like all of a sudden, by spinning, the lines and color and marks that he made on the discs suddenly create other forms or look like they're alive or animated. And so that seemed to me in many ways like a similar process to literally how sound and light create form, and the work that Joanne's doing. In the case of the Duchamp piece, it's only making it's natural sound, right? It's like it's the whirling of a disc on by a early machine, right? Like it's not intended to create other things, but that alone, I think, suggests space. It suggests the body's distance or interaction with said object. So, all of these pieces that we've addressed, the Namjoon Pak, the Audapene, I'm blanking on the other piece, but these are all, really examples. The Sina brothers, these are all examples literally of how artists are utilizing technologies, both sort of simple and rudimentary to more complex, light, and then that sort of either ambient sound or intentional sound that happens when things move, right? When you start moving things. And so that is basically how Joanne and I are connecting over this conversation, is to really look at, okay, here are some historic artistic precursors, right? That then now we've expanded. I would like to see, a render of the Duchampian discs in 4 dimensions in the AlloSphere. Can we do that? Let's do that.
We could do it.
As you were talking, Freddie, I know I'm just I'm wallowing in sort of a visual sense. I can turn that part on so easily in my mind. I was seeing myself early babysitting years, and the folks were out too late, and I was, wanting to stay awake so that I wouldn't be asleep when the folks came home. And it would be past midnight, and WGN in Chicago TV station would sign off for the evening, and I would be watching snow. And I would be hearing the sound of the snow on the TV. And that's what I was picturing in my mind as you were talking about the relationships between the two dimension and the now into the movement of the two dimensions. And I tried to understand that by reading along many years afterwards that Hofstadter's I'm a Strange Loop, and he talks about snow and TVs and the way that why snow happens, which I could never understand in a million years, and I ended up throwing the book across the room. But that's the picture I got is that do you remember knowing Freddie? You're too young.
No. I know what it is. I know it is. I think what's fascinating about that is because that's a perfect example of a visualization of wave, right? Like, I mean, it's sort of an abstract, um, it's an abstract representation of like electricity and currents and wave. Like it's all waves to Joanne's point, right? It's all
White noise.
yeah, it's all out there. And so what I love about you, the picture you've just created for us, Elizabeth, is like I then took it another level and I was like, oh, I could imagine myself falling in to that space. And that being a dream, almost hallucinogenic space where you're like, you could hear all kinds of things in there. You could see all kinds of things in there. All of a sudden, I'm adrift in the snow.
And also, Freddie, what happened on stations that signed off and they did nothing, there was only 3 channels when I was 13 years old, but so you'd see the snow pattern, and then the snow pattern would change if in the early days of color TV, the snow pattern would have these bands of color that kind
Color
of
bars.
move through the snow as that you were trying not to fall asleep. You would see the white snow, and then if you had lucky enough to have a color TV, which a lot of people didn't for a long time, but then you would see these bands of color coming across the screen, so you'd have the addition of color to the snow. Why I'm thinking of that, I have no idea right now. I
We're in it. We're in it right now, Elizabeth. We're in it.
Well, that's the thing is that, in that half dream state where you're trying to stay awake and you're half asleep and you're seeing this, you are kind of floating in that snow and in that light. Talk about this, Freddie. I know this is part of a whole series, and this is Color Light Motion. This is episode 28, but this is a series, correct?
Yes, and it's something that the David Berman Foundation has been doing for the last, I think, couple of years, is a series of conversations with artists and scientists and artists working in art and science. Victoria Vesna, who is a professor at UCLA, she is on the board of the Berman Foundation, is also an incredible artist. She has been kind of leading the charge with Bess Rocklitzer, who's the president of the foundation. So they, invite people that they've funded, invite, colleagues in the kind of industry. I think the last one was a curator at the Tate in London. She did a presentation about a kinetic art, kind of early kinetic art exhibition that some of the works from the Berman Foundation were loaned for. And so yeah, so it's an interesting series. I'd encourage people to check it out. It's all on the David Berman website
Okay,
it's
so
on
David
Zoom.
Burnett
on Zoom. Yeah.
on Zoom. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard. Richard just, oh yeah, let's go to quick break, Richard. Yeah,
Okay.
because you were giving me a sign way before. So, and then I kind of want to wrap up. And Freddie, I want you to tell me a little bit about how this kind of dovetails with San Milano Drive. You
yeah.
mentioned that at the very beginning, and I want to kind of circle back to that because I think that's important to note. Okay, Richard, let's go to a quick break. Don't turn that down. Back in a minute.
Okay.
All right, you're clear.
Okay. Good. Well, we're gonna know what to say tomorrow.
Oh yeah, this is good. This is real fun. I love it.
I have to play my singing bowls another time.
I know. Yeah, bring him by the museum. We'll do a
Yeah,
performance.
and come to the AlloSphere. You guys
Yeah,
gotta
bring
come.
him to the AlloSphere. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I would love to.
Absolutely.
They're all in different frequency. I know my mom said one, my big one was, I think, a B flat or something. She was able to tell me, yeah.
Look at that kid. Is that a doggy? That's a doggy.
Yeah. Well, it's like a little dachshund.
Yeah. And I saw your doggy.
Oh yeah, he's in my lap. He's like
Yeah.
my Zoom companion.
What, I can only see his ears and part of his head. What kind of a dog is he?
He's a Cholo Escuintle,
Oh, wow.
which is a Mexican hairless.
Yeah, yeah. I have a Tibetan Spaniel. It's my daughter's
Ooh.
dog. Yeah.
Oh,
They guarded the Buddhist monks' monastery.
I know.
Would alert the mastiffs whenever anybody was attacking.
I watch oh gosh, what's it called? The Westminster. I watch Westminster, the
Yeah,
dog
so there
show.
you go. You know.
Oh, I love that.
I cry. I'm always crying.
And did you see my little Dachshund just run past?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
That's
his name is Slinks.
Slinks.
Slinky.
Well, this is
Not
Leonardo.
Slinky, just Slinks, because he kind of moves like that.
Well, I was
The other
thinking of
thing-
a Slinky. Remember
Yeah.
the Slinky?
Yes. What else I would love to bring to the AlloSphere? I was telling you, my mom was a first graduate in conducting at Juilliard who was female.
Okay, we are coming back,
I would
and
love
you
to see the
have,
baton.
my dear, you
Right.
have 4 minutes. In 3, 2, 1, you're live.
Welcome back. It's Elizabeth Stewart. We're celebrating a really cool thing that's happening at the Museum of Contemporary Art, May 10th, 10 a.m., Color, Light, Motion, episode 28. Freddie Janka and Dr. Joanne Kuchera Morin will be discussing 4 objects from the David Berman Foundation collection that all have to do with the AlloSphere in a symbiotic way almost. And Freddie mentioned at the beginning of the show how this is sort of dovetailing and falling from DJ Javier San Milano Drive. Tell us more, Freddie.
Yeah, so the David Vermette Foundation has given us a grant to help support the exhibition. DJ Javier is a Filipino American, Santa Barbara raised, went to DP, awesome designer and artist. This will be his debut museum exhibition. And part of what he was really excited to do was a karaoke machine. And so like a live performance. So what it reminded me of is the Namjoon Pak piece, which is a performative piece where you speak into a microphone and it translates on the TV screen and creates visual shapes essentially. And so it's called Participation TV 1969, which somebody just mentioned to me recently. We might have shown at the Contemporary Arts Forum like back in the day. I need to double check that with the Vermette Foundation. But essentially, so then it got us thinking. I was like, oh, what if we expanded this idea of just a typical karaoke machine, which is very critical to Filipino culture? And basically what we proposed is making a videoke machine. So we're going to have some flat screens on the wall. We're looking at animating some of DJ's paintings and sculptures. He's never done that before. But then having this kind of vocal component that, we will still be doing karaoke, but it's going to be expanded into this video sense. And so again, I would even take the videoke over to the AlloSphere and see what happens.
We actually
Wow.
did. One of my grad students made a piece that was in the downtown museum in the One Mall in Upper State called Oscilla, where you actually spoke into it and it was like a visual oscilloscope. And so people were able to make visual oscilloscope sound pieces. So interesting.
We got 2 minutes, but Joanne, I'd love for you to give me one one thing that that the AlloSphere has done that surprised you?
I think the one thing that it's done that surprised me is to really realize how much it brings so many different people from so many different backgrounds together. People come in and they're in awe, and they love what they see, they love what they hear, and they love to be able to actually enjoy it together. So
It's
I think
marvelous.
it's been the surprise.
Thank you all for being with me today. It's
Thank
just
you,
been a
Elizabeth.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Joanne. Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.
And you're clear. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you. We'll
And if
take
you
care.
can,
Take care,
Frederick,
Richard.
send me that information regarding the museum. I'd really appreciate it.
Of course, we'll do.
All right. Blessings to the both of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Blessing. Bye.
Bye.